is it, man. A few more seconds. It's showtime.
Two different levels, I can relate.
The more I read, the more I learned, the more I understood. This was not a tool. This was a revolution.
Gotta let people know Bitcoin is money. It's not a commodity. It's not digital capital. It's not a digital gold. It's money. We gotta use it that way.
Family close, putting work in, take my flow.
The Bitcoin way educates and empowers every individual on how to regain control over their wealth, how to protect it, and how to get it right the first time, so that there's no mistakes and no anxiety in any stage of that process.
I think there are two important things that people should understand about self-custody. First of all, is that it is critical. You only hold your wealth if you take 100% self-custody. And anything else, you're taking on counterparty risk. You're exposing yourself to government intervention, regulations, failed businesses, and so forth. But the second and another very fundamentally important thing about self-custody is that anybody can do it. It's a new set of skills, but it's not that complicated. You just need the right teacher to help walk you through the process to do it correctly the first time.
For once, we have an asset that you can truly own yourself. And it's critical to take ownership over this asset to maintain its power and to ensure that you are in charge of your money and your money doesn't get eaten up by inflation or any other thing that's happening around the world.
Self-custody is so important because the whole idea around Bitcoin is to move away from counterparty risk, to move away from centralization. And if you're storing your Bitcoin with counterparties, you're just delaying the real adoption of Bitcoin, where we separate money and state and have a better world. So if you really want to be a part of the change, your Bitcoin should be truly yours. It shouldn't be shared with anyone, and it should be used. You shouldn't be afraid to use your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin only will become what it's supposed to become if you really use it and know how to use it, more importantly, not just to store it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bitcoin Way Live. I've got Tony with me. Tony, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, man. How's it going, Michael?
Going good. I cannot complain. We are halfway through the week, but it's always a fun week working in Bitcoin. Oh man, Tony, we got called out. Hey Goober said echo. Yeah, we were talking about this offline. The last two, we've had an issue. Our streaming platform is playing an echo when the video's going, and we need to troubleshoot that so you guys don't go insane.
Yeah,
Tony,
StreamYard loves our intro, man.
I know they want to play it twice as much.
No, but we're aware of this, guys. We will fix it. It is annoying for us too, so
yeah.
No worries there.
Believe
Apologies for now.
Yeah. All righty. We've got Cobra Brian says hi all. We've got Clean Your Machine Inc. official is
Good
back.
morning, all.
Yeah. Thank you for being back here. Good morning. And Ken B, who has been around on several of these chats. Glad to be here to receive the best signal. Hope your day unfolds with joy. It is unfolding with joy. It's always a good day. In Bitcoin,
Any day in Bitcoin, surrounded by like-minded individuals, it's Disneyland, brothers and sisters. Can't complain.
It's hard to beat. So, Tony, what's we'll get into the news here, but what is going on your end? Anything exciting? Oh, hey, one thing we didn't have on the agenda to talk about though was the new cold card product. The Mark V is coming out. I assume you've not ordered or tested it yet, obviously.
No, not yet. It's on the to-do list. It's not a very high priority product because I think their flagship Q is still going to be the #1 seller simply from a practicality perspective. It's bigger, nicer keyboard, things of that sort. But for those that prefer the smaller size, a bit more OPSEC, the MK5 definitely looks like a worthy upgrade. So just because we test everything, organically here at the Bitcoin Way, I will be getting my hands on one. But as of this live stream, that has not happened.
Yeah, I ordered one because I always like to just get these things and play with them and test them out. I haven't dug into it. I assume coming from CoinKite, it's it's going to be a great product, fully open source, air gap. What I like about the look of it is it looks even more like a calculator
Yes.
to me than even the Mark IV. And so for OPSEC purposes, for travel, anything like that, having something that no TSA agent is ever going to recognize it. I don't think they're tuning into any of our shows, Tony. So
Well, unless they're Bitcoiners and they're like, aha, I know what you're up to.
there are Bitcoiners everywhere, but I tend to assume that if you're working for TSA, you're not probably one of us. I couldn't work for TSA and be a Bitcoiner in good conscience, personally.
That's a good point, man. That changes one day, but for now, I think I tend to agree with you.
Isn't TSA or was it customs? You said part of the reason you had like a bad experience in the States or something, and they just like gave you a hard time for nothing or something to that effect.
Oh man, it was like a 40-minute interrogation. Where are you going? How long are you staying? What are you doing here? What do you have with you? Blah 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 blah. What the fuck, man? I'm going on a cruise. do you always harass your visitors that long?
No, we like Tony. Let me tell you something about the United States. If you work for the government, you like harassing everyone. That's not from the United States.
It's crazy, man. I'm like looking at them. I'm like, maybe there's a hidden camera somewhere. Like somebody's trolling me, with all of these silly questions. But holy shit, man! It didn't happen just once. It happened, I think, 2 or 3 times. At every stop, it was like similar questions, and so the whole experience was very weird and very unwelcoming, which is why I understand why some people just don't want to go there anymore, because why would you?
Yeah, I had so when I was traveling back from Prague for BTC Prague last year, I flew through Frankfurt and had to go through an additional layer of security to get to my next flight. And they check your boarding pass, your passport, all that stuff. And I had a moment of panic because he's flipping through the passport. And I'm like, as an American, like sometimes they give you a little bit more trouble or something just because they don't like our government. So like, okay, no big deal. But he couldn't find, maybe it was like where he couldn't figure out my path home. Like, where have you been for the last 5 days since you arrived in Europe? And I was like jet lagged, exhausted. I'd stayed up through the night. And so like I had to like stop and think about like what my connections had been. And so I explained to him like, well, no, I just got here. I was in Prague. So yeah, these guys, I mean, I guess, they were trying to do their job and make sure they were clear on who I was and not just let anyone through. But it's a pain in the ass, man.
If you were better looking, he may have frisked you. Sometimes they look for an excuse, man.
So I should be insulted that I didn't get frisked.
I don't know, man. I think it's a blessing in this case.
Yeah. No kidding. Okay, Tony, let's jump into a few things here. And by the way, we've got some other Andy Rogers says hello, guys. Andy, good to have you back. Tony, I'm going to share my screen here. You shared this with me. So this morning, hundreds of thousands of Iranians woke up to frozen bank accounts. Customers of Bank Sapah and Bank Meli, I'm sure I'm saying these wrong, Tony, you correct me, got an SMS saying that their accounts were locked. Bank's websites and service channels are blocked, and it's not possible to log into accounts at all. Tony, you said, where have I seen this before? I know where you've seen that before. Why don't you tell everyone where you've seen this before?
At least they got a courtesy message. I didn't get anything. I had to hear it from the screaming on the streets and from the neighbors. What happened? This is exactly a copy-paste scenario of around October 2019 with the bank shutdowns in Lebanon. This is precisely, almost like word for word, how it played out back then. You wake up one day and poof, there's nothing about your financial existence that's still around. And these poor Iranians, they are discovering the brutality of this new reality. And something that I've been warning about, that this is not isolated to these countries. This is a symptom of broken money. And sooner or later, that SMS, or maybe not, if they don't like you that much, will arrive to every country and every bank. And those that are, assuming, they are in a safe jurisdiction, or, oh, this can't possibly happen here, Well, I bet you if you ran a survey in Iran right now and asked these people, did you ever think you'd wake up one day and watch your entire life savings disappear like this? How many of them would answer yes?
Very few.
Correct. So I hope this is like a, another wake up call. Like if you didn't believe Lebanon, or maybe you thought that was isolated to there, maybe Iran, is another. Perhaps it opens eyes a little bit more. And when we start hearing these stories in other countries, well, then at some point you're going to see a full out global panic, and that's when I think the the catastrophic acceleration, the decay, will unfold. And maybe by then the FOMO into hard assets will finally click in to folks that really are out of options and are desperately needing to find some sort of safe play.
Yeah. I mean, money is the lubricant that enables the economic engine to run to begin with. And so you see this in books like Confessions of an Economic Hitman. There are people whose job it is within government or as a contractor to the government to play out how do we attack our enemies, not just with bombs, but you think about, I mean, you understand this as a cybersecurity guy. You've got people who are never going to fight a kinetic war against an enemy, but they're going to fight a cyber war, and they're going to look to take down critical infrastructure. And then you've got people who are going to impose an economic war, and that's happening all the time. Like that's a continuous game. That's what these tariffs are all about. That's what interest rate manipulation's about. I mean, so much of what happens that you just hear on the news is actually a form of warfare, but it involves dollars and cents and foreign currencies, and not bombs and missiles and bullets. So it doesn't surprise me at all that when you get into this sort of situation, that one of the first casualties, so to speak, is the financial lives of the people involved.
It's a very dangerous position to be in, man, when you realize that your life essentially is dictated by the whims of others. And we didn't notice this, for a very long time until, the system broke. And the connection is the money. Like if you don't own your money, you literally do not own your life, because once it gets turned off, like you're stuck. You are literally a sitting duck with no options and nowhere to turn. So what do? Right? And that's, when people, go on instinct mode, and becomes, the situation turns very ugly very quickly.
Yeah. So as evidence of what I just said, I shared this with you as well. So Iran just warned the region to stay 1 kilometer away from U.S. and Israeli economic and financial centers. After strikes on Iranian banks tonight, Tehran says U.S. and Israeli banks should wait for our painful response. So the war has escalated right into the financial system, which is, again, like I said, exactly what I would expect to see. And highly unfortunate. It makes a lot of sense as when you think adversarially about what war is. The problem is just like these stories we hear about a school, getting bombed. The collateral damage includes everyone, right? I mean, it's people waking up, to an SMS saying you don't have a bank account anymore. Can you imagine the turmoil that ensues? Well, you can imagine it. You've seen it. That ensues when an entire population receives that message all at once. I mean, immediately, the only thing you can imagine is, what do I need to do to survive?
Yeah, and most people will not have an answer, at least not immediately. The problem is with this whole Iran war, depending on how conspiratorial you want to be or not, or whether you've done the research. But it's becoming very clear. It was always clear to me, but it's becoming clear to folks, that have not gone down the rabbit hole, that this whole war is not about nuclear weapons or any dangers of mass destructions and any of that rubbish. It's about money. It's always been about money. All the previous wars shared, a similar reason, but the narrative that the people were sold was it was this, it was that, it was, oh my gosh, they're terrorists, they're a danger to national security and all that bullshit, right? But now there's more access to information, truthful information, and these narratives are not working as well. And so I think this whole invasion to Iran was because they don't want to play along with the Western plans for central bank digital currencies and digital ID. It's not to say that Iran doesn't want their own CBDC, but they want their own. They want nothing to do with the US version or the Europe's version or any other's version. And of course, the West doesn't like this because as long as you've got a leak in the global hegemony, well, then their plans don't really work, right? So they need everybody to be on board, and Iran just gave them the finger, and so well they retaliated under whatever excuse they're trying to sell the world. So this is what I think this is about. And now that the Iranian monetary system has completely blown up. Well, what did you expect? Did you expect a country that has been preparing for something like this for the last 25 years to just bend over and oh, okay, keep hitting us and we'll just take it, no problem?
Yeah. See,
of course
not. Yeah. Tony, I think you're raising a point that's important. When I talk about when I criticize the U.S. government and Israeli government and the who I perceive to be the perpetrators of this war. And I know some people think that, Iran having the nuclear bomb is the real reason and they're a threat. And so it was somehow defensive. I disagree with that. Regardless, though, the last thing I want people to hear is America bad guys, Iran good guys. At the end of the day, the people involved in all of these geopolitical tensions and war, at the end of the day, at the top of the food chain are politicians. I don't trust any of them. And I think it's like I don't want people to come to approach it with a knee-jerk reaction that you're either on Iran's side or you're on the U.S.-Israel side. The answer is I'm on Bitcoin's side. I don't want them to have these wars, and I don't trust in the good faith of anyone involved on either side. And doesn't mean I don't think that there are people who might not do good things on both sides for particular purposes, but we just don't need to cheer it on. Don't abandon your tribalism. I think is maybe kind of the point I'm making.
No, you're absolutely right, which is why I hate all politicians, and I've never liked politics in general. It's a very disgusting world. It's a very disgusting game, and you've got the worst of humanity, always screwing around and causing problems for the rest of the world. The issue is that people do take sides, foolishly. They blame one side over another instead of looking up at who's really responsible for all of it. And, prior to 2008, well, all of these wars, all of these calamities, essentially by corrupt organizations, have been possible because they had access to unlimited, money, that money printer, because it's a very profitable business. And now we fast forward to 2009, and there is a new currency that they can't control. And of course, it's still very early days, and still it's in infancy, and most people don't take it seriously, and all that rubbish. But it does exist, and it's not going anywhere. And it's becoming more and more clear to folks that this is something that you really need to pay attention to. If you look in the last few days, since the war started to escalate, Bitcoin didn't crash. In fact, it actually either stayed the same or it's slowly trickling upwards. And that's because, people are realizing that, hold on a second, if I need to get off that chessboard, because if I don't do this, then holy shit, things are going to go from really bad to really, really worse. And we're seeing all of this, play out on a global scale. I think it might deteriorate even further, at least in the short to midterm, until something finally breaks. And when that thing breaks, this is where you're going to see stories about, bank collapses or seizures or confiscations, capital controls, exit taxes, airports being closed. You're going to start seeing all of these horror stories everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what's going to be, that Lebanon's WhatsApp moment, that trigger that, catapults everything into pandemonium. And so I'm really worried about this, because depending on where you are, you can literally be in physical danger. So time will tell, how this unfolds. I really hope it doesn't deteriorate to that point. But the way things are going now, it's I don't know. I don't want to be like a bearer of doom and gloom, but to me, it seems like It's unavoidable. The US walked into something that they thought was going to end one way and are very unpleasantly surprised that, hold on a second, this is not how we predicted things would unfold, right? Because they underestimated where they were walking into. Remember, these people have been preparing for this day for over 30 years. Like, they've studied the US tactical strategies for 30 years. Like, they know you more than you know yourself. And so I think it was very naive to expect, oh, okay, we're just going to walk in like fucking cowboys, take everything out in 48 hours and everything's going to be fine. Clearly, it's not going to work this way. And now you've got a problem where they're going to, well, according to the post that you just brought up, retaliate on the financial system in areas where it's traditionally been, sheltered from all of this insanity. And if that's true, brace yourself.
Yeah. Tony, what's your real quick, I should pull up Matthew Kappa's comment here. He said, talking to a friend yesterday, tried to opt him out, even though he's into digital currency. He had no interest to save his money in privacy. I give up. Some people don't want to get saved.
Yeah,
Matthew,
some people are just leave him.
Yeah.
Some people are just meant to sink. There's nothing you can do about these folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning from Elaine Lowell. Elaine, thank you so much for being here. Tony, I was going to ask you two things. So first of all, before I forget, I would love for you to, you mentioned Lebanon's WhatsApp moment. I suspect most people aren't aware of that. So explain that first, and then I'll try to remember my second question.
The WhatsApp moment was the trigger that caused the whole country to collapse. And the reason why I bring it up so much is because, when people, talk about really bad news and things deteriorating, they're waiting for something really, sophisticated. The WhatsApp moment in Lebanon was some moron politician decided one afternoon that he wants to tax WhatsApp conversations because it's the #1 platform used in Lebanon by everybody. And so he's like, why not? Since they're using it all day long, let us tax them. We'll make, X amount of millions or billions of dollars. 15 minutes after the news broke out of this brilliant idea, the whole country was, on the ground floor. So you see, very stupid, unsophisticated something that finally broke the camel's hump. And I suspect we are going to see something very similar, perhaps not identical to WhatsApp, but something as retarded as that WhatsApp moment break somewhere else, which is going to, cause that massive domino ripple effect in a very, very bad way.
Yeah. So the other thing I was going to ask you, that's like a very typical cascading effect of, any political move, any legislation, any taxation that people, they're just unintended consequences to everything. And sometimes they're bigger, obviously, than others. What I was going to ask you is, I, as you know, do not consume any mainstream news. And honestly, I don't really spend a whole lot of time following the news in general. I kind of collect a little bits and pieces here on Twitter, but like in the war in Iran, I don't really know much detail, from like the mainstream US narrative or what internationally people might be thinking. One thing I've heard though, is that obviously the United States is like, we're taking out their nuclear facilities, we're winning, blah, blah, blah. And then I see other people say the United States is suffering miserably in this war. Like, this is not, what is the sort of more global perspective on what's actually happening that you can tell?
Well, man, everybody outside the US understands who's the perpetrator here. Mm-hmm. It's very clear, and it should be clear to more Americans, which is why it surprises me to this day why it's not. The US is the perpetrator. It's fighting a war that's not even its own war, like if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. And it's always done this. I sent you a video earlier today from, US military personnel that are, speaking out against this. This mm-hmm. one guy, he spoke about the war in Iraq. He's like, they were sold a narrative, a complete lie, putting, fine soldiers, sons, in a very perilous situation over nonsense. There were never weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. None of that was true. What there was in Iraq was a lot of gold and a shit ton of oil. Those were the weapons of mass destruction that the U.S. right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that clip.
Yeah,
but
I think
folks
this
who
is
haven't watched it, it's a good 30-second to a minute video that I think people should be paying attention to.
Was it this one?
Yes.
Okay, here, let's watch it.
Has been saying Iran has had nuclear weapons since like the 90s. When I was in the military, we went to other places other than Iraq and Afghanistan. When it comes to Iraq, we were sold an entire lie on that of nuclear weapons of mass destruction, chemical warfare buildings, and all this and that. We had a mission going into a big warehouse where they believed weapons of mass destruction were being held at. Nothing was in there but chlorine, and we had dropped 2 500-pound bombs on it. The weapons of mass destruction they were talking about, it was gold bars. Saddam Hussein had a lot of gold and even more oil. That was the weapons we were going after of mass destruction, the root of all evil.
That entire raid, it was all a lie, and it is proven, documented, and America just keeps moving on like, okay, who's next?
Right? Exactly. And you want me? I've been there. I was sold that same lie, and I went there, and I saw the lie. You want me to believe this next one too, from the same people who already lied to me? Israel has been saying.
Yeah, so
there you have it, man.
I think that's it. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Like I remember when after 9/11, I remember. So I grew up in like kind of just a conservative Republican sort of family, and I remember hearing sort of the George Bush haters, like kids in my 5th, 6th, or I guess it would be like 6th, 7th grade class, saying, "Oh, we're only going there for the oil." And I was like, no, you're an idiot. It's because, obviously, they bombed the World Trade, or they hit the World Trade Centers. Sorry, Freudian slip. They hit the World Trade Centers. That's obviously why we're going there. Never crossed my mind that there wasn't maybe the justification that I thought that we had. But I think that was, half of the country hated Bush and half of the country loved Bush and voted for him. And whatever Bush said, all the Republicans were going to go along with. That's the narrative. We believe it. And all the people who hated him were going to buy something else. And so every once in a while, half of the country is right about something simply out of spite for the other side, not because they actually did any thinking to land on the right conclusion, But I think that video clip seems to about sum up my perspective on what is likely the case. And
I think that explains, like sometimes you ask me, what does the outside world think of Americans? And I keep giving you the same response. The outside world has nothing against Americans. They have everything against American politics, which is, I think, very separate from Americans.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks in the United States are finally starting to realize that the real enemy is within. There's no external threat to the United States. And so, but, in order to keep, the agenda going, they have to invent one. Right. And so every once in a while, you have a story. And now we've gotten to a point where that fucking story, that playbook, is getting extremely dangerous, because not only is it dangerous in and of itself, it's also tied in with the timing of a collapsing monetary system. And so you've got all these elements at play simultaneously, something we've never had before, right? And how that plays out, man, that's a big question mark, even to myself. But if you ask my gut feeling, it can't possibly be good.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hey, Tony, let's get to a few comments. We've got had some people chime in here. G Fuzzy 22 said push
the like button. Yeah, man. That's appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, always feed the algorithm if you would for us. Ken B said that the narrative given by the US is always suspect. Yes, unfortunately, I found that out when I was like 30. I'll tell you what, though.
Better late than never, man. Better late than never.
I'm not like particularly proud of myself for a lot of things. The one thing I've learned about myself that I am proud of is I am very comfortable having been wrong, apparently, for a long time and then changing my mind. So like everything I believe now is, I think, much more principled. I'm more confident in it, but it's still open-handed. Like I could learn things that change my mind, even on issues that I sound very confident on. So I think that's part of growth. I think.
Well, I mean, when war is a business, everything makes sense, right? And when you're desperate trying to control the money, because by doing that you control the world, well, then everything also makes even more sense, right?
Yes. Trevor Watt says the goal is endless war. That's an Assange quote. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And you know what? You know what? I need to find Tony when you start chatting in a minute. Remind me. I'm going to find a tweet I think I sent to my brother. I think it was Simon Dixon that I'd like to share. Nietzsche said, "Everything the state tells you is a lie, and everything they have is stolen." Completely true.
Absolutely, man.
And that was when was Nietzsche around? I mean, it's hundreds of years ago now, or a couple hundred years ago at least,
Well,
right?
before our time, for sure.
Yeah, he's almost as old as Tony. No, I get all my philosophers' dates and timelines confused. TBW for the win. Thank you, Johns.
Johns, what's up, man? Good to hear from you, brother.
Yeah,
man. He is back.
Dude, what a guy. I will never forget seeing him do a backflip off a catamaran into the Mediterranean. We've got Matthew J21, the usual suspects up in here. I don't know if he's referring to us or if there's a shitcoiner in the audience or he's talking to politicians. Matthew, good to have you back, man.
I doubt you have any shitcoiners in this audience.
No, we remember last time didn't we have like a
I wouldn't call him a shitcoiner. I'd call him confused.
Yeah, I call him a shitcoiner, but no, I hear you. Here we go. Elaine said Nietzsche lived let's see, 1844
to 1900. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he was one of the more
time.
Contemporary philosophers. Okay. Yeah. Good to know. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, Matthew was talking about Bitcoiners in the audience. Thank you, Matt.
Best kind of crowd, man. The best kind of crowd.
Tony, let's so we've got another tweet up here that I'd like to share. So this is from George Noble. We're watching a financial crisis unfold in real time. The last time funds started blocking investors from getting their money back, Bear Stearns collapsed 6 months later. So he kind of goes on to tell the story, but he says, I'm not saying that we're there yet, but I'm saying the pattern is rhyming. BlackRock capped withdrawals. Investors wanted 1.2. BlackRock gave them 620 million and said no to the rest. I mean, this is what the world's largest asset management company is saying, sorry, can't do it. That to me is talk about signal. That's something I think everyone needs to be paying attention to.
That news fucking gave me a chill down my spine because I'm expecting banks to collapse, but I wasn't expecting like the biggest asset manager to do this so quickly. I figured at some point they're gonna have no choice, but for them to do it, a few days ago, like holy shit! Like if you want to sound the alarm, you sound it everywhere at the highest level.
Yes. I completely agree. I think this is, this is the something we've been talking about in Bitcoin for a long time. And, Larry Lepard wrote the big print, and in it, he details sort of his journey through the 2008 financial crisis, how they changed the rules on him and what should have been a massive year of gains because he was right about a lot of the collapse turned into a terrible year for him. They basically just said, the rules are no longer what they were before. So you went from completely on sides to completely off sides in the bets that you were making. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that coming. And you're right. Capital controls are for sure on the way. I would love anyone in the comments. I'd love for you to chime in and kind of especially if we've got any, because Tony and I aren't like financiers, right? If you've got like any sort of financial analysis skills and you're like, hey, this is what I'm looking at and I'm tracking this stuff closely, I'd love to hear your thoughts because all I can read into it is it's messy and it sends a very strong signal when someone like BlackRock and then several other in the private credit space are saying, sorry, we're not buying it back. We don't have the liquidity to do that.
And the thing is, when you've lived through something like this, you don't look at charts. Right? You look at experience because the signs are crystal clear. And to me, like what I say is based on my recollection of what happened. And it's almost like I'm replaying this movie again and again and again, which is, makes it very easy to predict, what the next headline is going to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Hey, Tony, hang on, I want to show you this tweet that I saw. Simon Dixon, Trump pretends to broker peace in Ukraine. Putin pretends to broker peace in Iran. Meanwhile, Russia is selling record liquid natural gas in Asia. The U.S. is selling record liquid natural gas in Europe. and this is the key. I think this is what everyone needs to zero in on. The military industrial complex gets paid for every bomb. The financial industrial complex finances destruction and rebuilding. The technological industrial complex offers you peace in exchange for a police and surveillance state theater. I think
100%, man, 100%. This has been the case for as long as wars have unfolded, and the only way to stop this is for enough people to stop using the product that is funding all of this insanity. But you need people to understand that to be in the first place, which is why a lot of big efforts have been put for a very long time to keep the populace ignorant. And so that's why you don't get the reactions. That's why you have people still looking left and right instead of looking up. That's why you have people still calling things like Bitcoin, funny money. That's why you have people still, investing in rubbish. That's why you have still people, getting rugged and blaming somebody else for it. This is why, that hamster wheel keeps going and people, get nowhere. So hopefully now, during our lifetime, we see some sort of, useful change. I'm hopeful Bitcoin is going to, at least move us in that direction, considering its fixed supply and that, not just a small number of people is all that's required to really start causing, a tsunami reaction globally. And I think that's the only way to win, because you can't go to war with this octopus, man. It's been around for far too long, and no one's interested in doing this. And so the most, logical step to me is just to walk away. Like, don't interact with them. Leave them alone. Let them self-destruct, because that's clearly what's happening now. And stop believing the lies. You need enough people now to start, waking up to reality and not looking to their next door neighbor for validation, because chances are the next door neighbor is just as clueless, right? So everybody needs to do their own research and find the truth for themselves. And the truth is out there, because ever since the internet came about, that that monopoly on news and communication has been broken, which explains again now the more recent efforts to censor the internet and put digital IDs and all that fucking bullshit. It's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is and so desperately try to cling on power that's expiring, we wouldn't see all of this. So again, everybody's has an exit, has a way to protect themselves and to just, again, step off that chessboard. It can't get simpler than that. I know it sounds a little too simple, but it really is.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hey, Goober said, win tails, you lose. That is absolutely correct. Yeah. Elaine said, not a charts person, but the number of camper trucks where I live with people living in them has tripled.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
Yeah, like that's sad. Yeah, like this is what I've said. I feel as a Bitcoiner and someone who's, I'd say financially just privileged to have financial stability in my life. My sense is that I'm out of touch to some degree with the reality that many people are living. And by my estimate, it's 50% of the population is looking at their grocery receipts and saying, I don't know how we're going to pay for these next week. It just doesn't seem tenable anymore.
And you don't even have to look outside the United States, man. The majority of folks in the United States are living below the poverty line. Like, situation at home is disastrous. Forget the outside world that's actually living under bombs now. There's a different type of calamity happening, at home.
Yeah, and it's happening at home everywhere. Is kind of the point. It's not just the people who are in literal physical ruins in the midst of kinetic warfare. But I think that's, Tony, that's honestly is sad as it is, and as sympathetic and empathetic as I can try to be. I think that is going to be the catalyst for change, is just that level of desperation to peak and people to say enough is enough.
I hope so, man. Ken, your question is a very good one. And I wish I had good news for you to tell you that it's 90%, but sadly, it's not the case. Yeah. That was one of the major reasons why I got so pissed off and desperately wanted to leave Lebanon, because nobody was doing anything intelligent. And you could blame it, of lack of education, ignorance, and just desperate, right? Like, I mean, people needed to eat, so they had no attention span to learn something new, let alone deal with fiat volatility. They needed to put bread on the table in the next 30 minutes, which made things a bit more difficult to adopt something like Bitcoin. But the numbers have changed since 2019, and I'm assuming these numbers will increase quicker now that these financial troubles are spreading, at a very fast pace to many countries. It's no longer isolated to some story out there. Now it could be you next week or next month, and so awareness about these options that are out there is spreading. And I don't think it's going to take very long, if things continue to deteriorate at this pace, before we see Bitcoin explode. Because the finite supply, and there's 8.3 billion people that are being screwed on a daily basis. And if you add to that bank accounts being shut down and seized, well, that exponentially shortens the timeline to that panic and FOMO.
Yes, absolutely. John said, Bitcoin and cold storage only. Quit chasing yield in these fiat products and cut the financial industrial complex completely out. I completely agree. It's the only way we defund them. In fact, I have this tweet that Adam Semeka said, yield, income, these are Keynesian brain necessities. Once you realize both are fiat illusions, you can really unlock true freedom. And I said, say it with me, the yield on Bitcoin is freedom. I think that is an important thing for people to understand. Hey, Tony, we've got someone who wants to know, Trevor Watt said, perhaps you've shared your thoughts before, but could you give your abbreviated thoughts on the Clarity Act?
The Clarity Act, there's a video of mine that I put out not too long ago that I think that talks about this. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no government in the world that will willingly adopt Bitcoin in the form that it was created, right? Because it doesn't serve their purpose. Bitcoin was created for the separation of money and state. There's no sugarcoating this. And so they're never going to willingly adopt something that puts them out of business. Mm-hmm. So what they try to do is to rebrand it. And so they want, Bitcoin in their custody and not in yours, so that they can build these financial empires and lock them down with the most draconian forms of KYC, AML, and all that other fucking rubbish that that drives these people on a daily basis. So I don't think you should be too optimistic about this or even care, because as long as your Bitcoin is in your self-custody, no form of regulation or law or mandate can affect it. And if you're worried about the jurisdiction that you're in, giving you a headache, there are other options. I know that's a big decision for many folks, and it's not usually an easy one, but the right decisions are often the toughest to make. But that's because they are right. It's the path less traveled. I think they're going to be trying to extend the lifeline of the dollar as much as possible. That's why you see, the Genius Act and the stablecoin marketing and all that nonsense. Why? Because nothing changes for them, right? It's just a digital form of the same rubbish, giving them even more control over it. Stable coins is how people are going to find themselves stuck in a central bank digital currency. Initially, when they launch it into the world, they're going to market it as the next best thing, right? They're going to say, hey, look, better than Bitcoin, just as easy, peer to peer. You can do it, no fuss. You don't need your bank. You don't need, you don't need to deal with those headaches. Use those stable coins. I know, of course, a lot of unknowing people are going to see this and they're like, holy shit, that's true. Yay, fun times, right? Until enough people are in that cage, and then click goes on the on switch. And now all of a sudden you have extreme forms of KYC. You've got transactions that are being blocked and censored for whatever reason they come up with. And before you know it, you're going to need that, pretty digital ID to use your money. And if you don't follow the rules by these crazy psychopaths, well then off. And then you realize, holy shit, what did I just do? So stable coins are central bank digital currencies that have not been weaponized, and don't expect them to be weaponized initially. But trust me, when the timing is right, when the setup looks juicy, that's when you can expect it. And so all of these acts, these Clarity Acts, Genius Acts, regulations, all of this is to maintain power over the money, right? And so if you understand this, it doesn't matter how they do it, because the only focus should be on getting out of the way so that whatever they do doesn't impact you. And the only play that's available for 8.3 billion people is Bitcoin in self-custody. Anything outside of that, you are still on their chessboard, susceptible to everything that they want to put out there.
Yes. And I'll make a comment that I think it was an interesting observation. So I mentioned, I think on the show a week ago or so, that my interview with Mayer Mizrachi, the mayor of Panama City in Panama, came on the show. And we were talking a little bit about the way that Bitcoin has been integrated into Panamanian culture. Like at your bank, you can, or at least some of the more innovative banks who are picking up on this, you can see your dollar denominated balance, your Bitcoin balance, your stablecoin balance, all in one place. You can send, receive, all of that stuff, right? So obviously we don't think that's how you should custody your Bitcoin, but it can be useful when you're trying to operate sort of through a normal channel for a specific purpose or something, that they're actually integrating this. And I asked him a bit about their regulatory landscape when it came to Bitcoin, because you can also pay for public services in Panama City with Bitcoin. And he said, my push has been not to regulate it, right, at least not right away.
You can't regulate it.
Well, sure. But I think they're like companies trying to figure out like, hey, what, as a money transmitter, what am I allowed to do, or what am I going to get in trouble for, or whatever. And his point was, we need to see how the free market demands using these technology like Bitcoin, because we don't want to hinder its growth and utility. If people are trying to, use it to buy houses, we don't want to say, well, you can't do that because, for whatever reason. And Tony, I agree. The point you're making is a much bigger point that I, as a, something of an anarchist, completely agree with. Don't care what the government says. Doesn't matter. But a lot of people are trying to figure out like, hey, how do I operate a business, a banking, business, an adjacent business to Bitcoin, and not go to prison because of something that I did. And he's like, hey, let's let people, figure this out. In the US, we want to regulate the hell out of everything. Like if there's not a piece of paper telling people what to do on a particular topic, well, damn it, we're going to write down on a piece of paper what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do on that topic. And I think it's just a horrible approach that we take.
Well,
and unfortunately, I think Bitcoiners see that because it's important people talking about a topic that we talk about, they think it gives us some amount of legitimacy that if those important people weren't talking about it, we wouldn't have. And I'm like, those are the last people I want talking about the topic that I'm discussing. Like, I want them as far away from all of the things that I care about as humanly possible. And I just want to be able to ignore them and proceed with my life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And there will always be countries out there that are not going to play these tyrannical games and are already, clearly opting out of them. And so when you're the global reserve and you're, literally threatened, now your existence is literally threatened by a competitor that you cannot stop and that is growing in adoption. Bitcoin is not dying. It's expanding. It's spreading quietly in many countries. I'm sure there's at least 30 or 40 nation states that are either mining Bitcoin or buying it quietly and not saying a peep about it yet. I'm almost 100%. Like I can almost sign it for you that this is what's happening, because it's the logical step, right? Yeah. The day the U.S. weaponized the dollar was the day they lost, and it's just going to take a bit of time until it completely people completely just give up on it and walk away towards something else. And so all of these efforts, are again, you have controlled the money for so long. And now you can't anymore. So what do? You go crazy. This is what we're seeing with all sorts of insanity, right? But it's not going to work because human beings, at least the majority of human beings, are not, put on this planet to be slaves, right? Like you can screw someone once, maybe twice. At the third time, you're gonna get a pushback. That pushback is what we're starting to see globally now. Like nobody's sitting down anymore. There are options, and that's the key here. Is that prior to 2009, a real option never existed. After 2009, that entire corrupt world became optional to those that are paying attention. And so that's why I keep saying, ignore the volatility of the fiat bullshit price. It's absolutely meaningless. The power of Bitcoin is the fact that no one can stop you from transacting in it. And there's always going to be people who accept it as money because it's the only form of sound money they can actually own, right? And so we need this message to spread. It's not spreading as fast as I'd like, but again, calamities worldwide are the best form of advertisement to quicker education, right? When you have rockets, falling on your head every day, well, now you're not going to be taking your sweet little time thinking about, okay, what am I going to do this afternoon? What's for dinner? You're going to be like, holy shit, everything needs to change now. Tell me what I need to do, right? So your attention span changes. Your mind gets reprogrammed almost instantly, properly this time.
Yes, well said. Hey, Tony, speaking of government overreach and, the administrative state here in the U.S. is just absolutely nuts. So
Look at the
TCC shared
now.
this. This was yesterday. So the IRS, so our tax authority for anyone who's not in the U.S., created a new crypto audit form designed to make you incriminate yourself. So basically, you have to. So this is not something you have to submit just because you have cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or anything like that. If you get audited for some reason, then they will send you, they'll ask you a billion questions. And one of the things they want you to fill out is a historical digital asset form that lists all these exchanges and demands that you check yes or no for every single one. Do you have any Bitcoin there? Do you have any crypto there? All this stuff. Then sign it under penalty of perjury. So it's not a tax form, it's a mapping exercise is kind of the point here. And then it says you forget a platform you used once in 2017, that's perjury. Disclose everything. You gave them a roadmap for new lines of inquiry. Don't respond, they'll issue a summons. So this is, just complete and utter insanity.
There's the scary thing about this is that there's absolutely no individual that can fill this out properly.
Yeah.
Because it's impossible to keep track of everything that they're asking for. It's like if I go up and tell you, all right, Michael, how many onions and tomatoes did you buy from Walmart 6 years ago? And if you lie, I'm gonna come kick your ass. Right? How are you going to answer that question truthfully?
Yeah.
This is how absurd this thing is, right? And to me, it's laughable considering the marketing. We are going to make America the Bitcoin crypto capital of the world. Really? Is this part of the marketing plan? Is going to war in 3 different countries in less than 3 months part of the marketing plan to do that? Is auditing innocent Americans in a way that's impossible for them to truthfully answer part of that plan? Like, again, people need to snap out of that coma and understand who you're dealing with, right? Because until that happens, nothing will change.
Yeah. And keep in mind, this is why I just can't emphasize the importance of distrusting politicians, regardless of which side of the aisle you tend to align with. This is the first crypto president. Remember that, guys? Remember, Donald Trump, and this is his IRS who is telling people we want to document everything. And by the way, it's not just cryptocurrency holders. It's the surveillance state. It's in bed with Palantir. It's all of these other things. I mean, you described the Clarity Act, right? I think you said they effectively have kind of rolled the Bank Secrecy Act.
Yes.
This is just one, one more thing. So before you go on and cheer Donald Trump because he freed Ross and he signed an executive order that, pretends like a strategic Bitcoin reserve really exists in some meaningful way, just keep in mind, this is what's really happening. This is how you are going to be impacted. The SBR is not going to impact your life. I'm glad he freed Ross, but not going to impact your life. Those are easy swipes of the pen for him. This stuff is going to intimately impact your daily life if you concede and fill out the form and try to list everything. Now they know. Now they've got you. So,
and the funny thing about this is that this comes from a team that is pro Bitcoin and winning. Can you imagine if they didn't?
Yeah, Kamala.
what that would have looked like. Like, if you think this is bad, this is someone who actually likes the space, supposedly. Imagine if they didn't like it, like the next one who comes on board, if they don't like it. Like, what can you expect then?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Tony, we got a few comments. We said, good morning, Tony, and the other Michael Jordan, Flawless Thunderbolt. Thank you for being here. Oh, hang on, I like this one. Stack and chill, hit the like or have fun staying poor. Yes, you will be poor if you do not hit the like button. Feed the algorithm, folks. So we really appreciate that. Cabo Brian said,
That's right. Snap out of that coma, man.
Snap out of that coma. Tony, you've been snapping a lot of people out of comas lately. Matthew said, love the signal, gents. One of the only shows that hasn't sold out to talk about fiat price. Keep sending that bright orange signal.
We don't collect toilet paper here at the Bitcoin Way, guys. That is never going to change.
Yes, it's we have too many more important things to talk about, like Bitcoin and self-custody. Oh, this is a good one. Matthew said, I said back when Trump got into office, I said on Nostr, he will be remembered as the shitcoin and CBDC president. Wow. I think Matthew, hey Matthew, you need to send some receipts, man. I'd love to see that. No, but I believe you. I think you're absolutely, I'll be honest with you. I was still, when Trump was running, I still had enough of a normie mindset that I was like, I think this is going to be much better. Now I'm obviously not convinced of that. At the time, I was very early at the Bitcoin Way, and I hadn't, Tony hadn't shaken me free of the cobwebs that clouded my judgment. And I thought the SBR was a good thing. And then it didn't take very long for me to change my mind about that. I just had to stop.
Look, there's a very easy win if they were really, pro Bitcoin and all that. Just make all these leveraged bullshit games around Bitcoin illegal. Kill derivatives, no more leverage. Make all of that stuff illegal. Remove it from the Bitcoin space, and almost overnight things will improve. Right?
Yeah, so much.
But as long as you let
Bitcoin,
certain companies have privileged exceptions where they can fuck around with paper Bitcoin, manipulate, lie, and separate people from their Bitcoin, well, you're not going to ruin Bitcoin, but you're just going to slow down the adoption of those who need it the most, right? Because they're going to assume, oh my gosh, look how volatile, how risky, how blah blah, all the nonsense that we hear about.
Yes. Let's see. We've got Cloud said we're going to war in the name of God, and God we trust. Yeah, there's always a horrible justification. Let's see. Matthew said, you're right, Tony, but banks and governments will always push laws that allow them to manipulate fiat price and slow adoption. That's it. And Tony, I think that's really the key is there are people who do understand Bitcoin and they want to accumulate more of it. And I know when you look at like Checkmate and some of these guys who I really like and respect and appreciate the work that they do and digging into the weeds, they're like, hey, OGs are selling. It's not market manipulation. I have a sense that there's more to the story.
Of course there is, man. Of course. I mean, there was an article not that long ago where the banks are really pissed about this whole yield for private companies. And now they're going to be lobbying hundreds of billions of dollars. So this is not good, for anyone hoping some form of regulation is going to be favorable, right? Because again, these are the thieves that have been stealing for decades, under fire now. They're fighting for their own lives. And so they don't care who gets wrecked in the process because they're only looking out for themselves.
Correct.
So don't be very optimistic on governments or politicians saving the space. Bitcoin wasn't created for their permission.
Absolutely.
People save their own space. You have this thing. You get it. You hold it yourself. You use it as money. You start to earn it. You start to reshape your thinking in sats. You move perhaps to jurisdictions that are less stressful. You protect yourself, right? Like you have to reprogram almost your entire existence. I understand these are like big words and big decisions, but look, we are living in the world that we are in right now. Like, I'm not making this up. Look around you. Where do you find good news in places that are supposed to be the nice places to live, the safe jurisdictions? It's not. It just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthew said that Plan B and OG sold, but they sold into ETFs, which means they're advancing trap Bitcoin and manipulation. Yeah, and that's the thing for me is
or they could be lying.
What's that? Yeah,
Or
yeah,
they
that's
could be
true.
lying.
That's true. If people really are doing that, then you know what, Tony, you're right. Lying would actually be if you're someone who's been around the space for a long time and everyone's impression is you have tons of Bitcoin, and then you say I'm selling and I'm buying the ETFs, it's a really good way when you look at this form that we talked about of throwing people off of what you might actually have. Because it seems to be hard.
They're assuming people are that stupid, right?
Yeah, you didn't come into the space 10 or 15 years ago without a pretty fundamental understanding of what Bitcoin was. You know, you were a cypherpunk, libertarian, sound money. You were someone like that. Maybe you could have been disillusioned with you were a big blocker or something like that. But like, if you still stuck around Bitcoin until 2024, 2025, you're not selling because you don't understand what it is to hold Bitcoin in self-custody. Like you're a person who would get that. So yeah, I think there could be like an art of distraction going on. Elaine said, never trust politicians. Theft and lying is part of the job they signed up for, with funds from those who they serve. Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. Tony, is there anything that we did not cover today that you were hoping to chat about? Because we're about at the top of the hour.
Well, man, we can go on for months, on what's going on globally. But if there's any, any imminent questions, bring them up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's to be continued, guys, and spread the word about this live stream. And if you've got any questions or topics that you'd like to discuss with us, just bring them up on screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we got nothing, but I just want to share before we jump off two things. So first of all, we got a webinar coming up next Tuesday, the 17th, with our friend Zane Truscott. Zane's an awesome guy, hardcore Bitcoiner. He's an Aussie. So this is going to be, I think this is like 4 a.m. Eastern time. So this is probably more for folks in Europe, Australia, the Far East. But scan the QR code, get signed up. Tony and Zane are going to just speak briefly, sort of high level, about why self-custody, because I think a lot of people are still really trying to overcome this like mental block as to, does it really matter? I think they'll help you with that. But then they're going to spend most of their time just answering your questions about Bitcoin, anything that you have, plan Bs, all the things we talk about, privacy. So should be really fun. And then second, schedule a call with our team. You get a free 30-minute welcome call where we can talk you through our philosophy, why we believe in self-custody, why we do it the way we do it. And I can just tell you, as a client who has since become the chief growth officer of the Bitcoin Way, I can't say enough good things about the process. I worked personally with Tony and some others on the team getting into proper 100% self-custody, and you will sleep better at night knowing that when we talk about stories like Iran, when we talk about frozen bank accounts, in Canada back in 2021, when we talk about the withdrawals, the $20,000 cash withdrawal that the lady couldn't pull out of the bank, you are completely unaffected by those things. Like, when you think it could never happen to you, it can't happen to you if you have your Bitcoin in self-custody. So it's a beautiful thing. Schedule a call. We'd love to chat with you. And Tony, I think that's a good place to wrap, my friend. We do have, hang on, let me just make sure we got a couple more comments. Don't want to leave these. Do you guys also see a Bitcoin awakening amongst the youth, or predominantly amongst the older generation?
Yes.
I think youth predominantly. I think there's going to be some gold bugs who open their minds to Bitcoin and just it hasn't clicked yet. So I think that's coming. We said, awesome show, you guys. Johns, thanks, man. Really appreciate you being here. He needs to send me a bottle of that rum he gave us.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I still have a shot of that rum every once in a while.
Oh man, I need to get some. Let's see. My guess is later they'll try to act like Bitcoin can't be owned by the people. Yeah, Swamp Stopper, I think you're absolutely right about that. Matthew,
the best thing to do is to ignore that nonsense.
Matthew, do you have an email for partners? Not sure what you mean. Shoot me an email, michaeljordan@thebitcoinway.com. And I'd love to answer your question and see if there's something we can do to work together. But guys, thank you all so much for being here. Tony, always a blast. Had so much fun today, and we'll be back same time, same place on Friday. Stay tuned, everyone, for more. And remember, the yield on Bitcoin is freedom. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.